All right, so get ready for another awesome talk coming up here. So the next speaker I've known for probably close to 10 years. It's been a long time. Been knowing Georgia for quite some time. Georgia is a serial entrepreneur, penetration tester, security researcher, speaker, trainer, and author. Her work in the field on smartphone exploitation has been featured internationally in print and on television. Georgia has presented and conducted training all over the world in venues such as NSA, West Point, and Black Hat. She was awarded the DARPA Fast Track grant to continue her work on mobile device security. So one of the things that Georgia is known for, she's also a cyber policy fellow at New America. Georgia is also the author of Penetration Testing, a hands-on instruction to hacking from No Starch Press. And so this is what a lot of people know Georgia from is that book, and you've helped a lot of people getting into pen testing. Really appreciate it, and I'm going to hand you the mic. Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, so first off, I would like to point out that my pamphlet on how to dress like a serious cybersecurity professional was clearly lost in the mail, but now I know how to do it, so thank you, InfoSec Bros Club, for sending that my way. All right, so first off, I would like to thank Marcus, to, I guess, reiterate. Oh, thanks. Being able to do slides is good. So yeah, I did penetration testing, a hands-on introduction to hacking, as kind of the book that I wished I had had when I was coming into InfoSec, because I didn't really know anybody. I didn't have a lot of Linux experience, so it would be like, try harder or get off, noobs, and it kind of made me sad. So I wrote a book to, I guess, kind of help me, as if, if I could go back in time. So thank you to Marcus for kind of doing the same thing here, but I guess on a grander scale, because mine was just for pen testing and this is for the industry as a whole. So I'm going to talk about something a little different. Usually I'm like, and then the exploit goes here and the ROP chain and, whatnot. But not today, which is kind of freaking me out. And, you're lucky you didn't have to like go get me at the bar, because that would totally go with my reputation, right? So this part I don't really understand, because it's like, I guess, a classic romance story. That is supposed to be like boy meets girl and boy loses girl, but I mean, I'm a girl, and this is clearly a talk about a horse, because if you follow me on Twitter, that's basically what I tweet about these days, is my horse and not about InfoSec. So speaking of horses, and I noticed this, it's like the smaller pictures that looked fine on my computer look like real crap up there. So I'm sorry for that. You can tell how old they are. Anyway, that's me when I was like 12, and I wish I still had those legs. Like, seriously. So yeah, that's me riding when I was a kid. So that's what I did when I wasn't, I guess, in school. And that taught me that I was like a serious competitor, like crazy about it. And yeah, I don't know why we put that in. But yeah, I'm actually from Mississippi. I don't know if anybody knows that. I actually kind of joke and say I'm lucky I can read. And I guess you guys are lucky I can read if you've read my book, because it would probably be a lot more incoherent if I couldn't. But I was lucky because my mother actually has a PhD in computer science. I guess my first sentient memory is her with her like cap and gown getting the PhD when I was like 3 or so. So, I guess a lot of people get the whole like girls can't computer thing, and I'm sure I got a lot of that, but it just kind of like, went over my head, because obviously it wasn't true, because I, had someone at my home who was a girl in computering. So, it didn't work very well on me. But I guess I always felt a little different from everybody else. I mean, particularly, probably it had a lot to do with being in the Deep South, because I guess we're kind of in the Deep South here, right? It's like football and cheerleader, like rah, 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 like academic decathlon, not so much captain of the chess team. No, you don't win any awards for that. So I was kind of weird. And as I got older, I guess I was kind of looking for like why I was weird. And I never really found any real answer, and despite like doctors like trying to like bang it into my head that this is what it was, but I didn't believe it until I actually read this actual book called Asper Girls. Particularly, I guess, you know, when we diagnose like autism, it's very typically like, you know, how it presents in males, and you know, being a female myself, I was a little bit different. So, you know, I read this book and it suddenly like clicked. You know, that's why I'm, I guess, so weird. And actually, someone else wrote how weird I am. I guess I have no self-awareness, but this is apparently like what I'm like. I struggle with maintaining eye gaze. Actually, that's true, totally. Or understanding facial expressions or even gestures. So-called intuitive social and emotional responses can be a mystery to me. For example, I'm never quite sure when it's my turn to talk. Okay, this is all true, you're right. So invariably, I talk too long, and that annoys people. Or I don't fill in the gap in a conversation, and that annoys people, which means it's my inclination to, you know, go stand off in the corner and not talk to anybody, which annoys people and makes them think I'm a bitch, because I find it really difficult to like closely observe everybody, and it kind of makes my head explode. You know, all the like, I guess, minute details I have to like run through my head. I practice really hard, but it like requires this level of focus, which again just kind of makes me want to go like hide all the time. And my brain parses like everything literally, so good luck if you try and like say a joke about me on Twitter. I'm sure you've like seen my dragon breath if that happens. Definitely that doesn't turn out too well. And yeah, I know. And I'm much better at the concrete than the abstract, which works out really well in these computer science and math and, you know, these STEM fields, because it is, you know, really concrete. But these human-based abstractions, like, you know, talking to clients and kickoff calls and things, not so much. I've had to do a lot of work there. So obviously, given the above, ability to sustain friendships, kind of not so much. And of course, naturally, that, you know, makes you have like depression and social anxiety. And why the fuck did you make me do this talk? So anyway, you know, the list of differences goes on. You know, they say that, you know, if you've met one person with autism, you've done that. You've met exactly one person with autism. So, you know, you may notice some of these in you, and there's like, you know, a flow chart or something that I don't really understand. Anyway, so I guess the theme of this talk is things that people have said about me on Twitter. So somebody said I don't have any coping skills. So then one of my advisors in my startup made this for me. Apparently that is a coping saw, and there's some skills in it. So now I do. I'm glad you guys get it, because it's still kind of lost on me why that's funny. But yeah, so, I mean, Jason's going to talk about empathy later, but I kind of get, I mean, yes, empathy is hard. Yeah, that's kind of the, I guess, overarching. They say that, you know, autistic people don't understand other people. We have no empathy. But, I mean, saying that other people don't have coping skills, like in public on Twitter, I mean, you want to talk about not having empathy. I mean, let's go. Let's go. All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple of coping skills that I have developed. Looking people in the eye. Okay, has anybody read like the Dune book, like, or seen the movie, even the like old one that everybody says is crap? You know, when he has to like put his hand in the box, and it's like he thinks his hand is going to be burned away because it was so bad. But that's like what looking into people's eyes is like for me at least, and you know, a lot of other people that I've talked to in InfoSec. But apparently looking in people's eyes is like how you tell whether someone's trustworthy and things like that I can't remember, like a long list of things that you want to be if you want to, say, get a customer or get somebody to work with you on a project or get somebody to give you venture capital money. So not being able to do that, like, kind of makes you look shady. So what I've, I guess, developed is looking like right here at people's foreheads, and they have no idea at all. And then another one of these pictures that like, but look, I spoke at Black Hat, aren't I cool? Anyway, so another thing I do is I actually take my glasses off when I talk, because now I can't see if any of you are bored at all. So you guys can be like completely hating this talk and I would have no idea. You guys are all just blobs right now. Anyway. And then there's like starting with a joke, right? You guys have got to explain this to me. So I gave this, I guess, venture capital pitch, and my advisor told me to start with, so I just flew in from like far away, and boy, are my arms tired. Okay, some people get it. I still don't get it. But yeah, basically, I guess other people tell me what I should say in my talks at the beginning to make me sound more normal, because the coping skills thing what? I flew in and what? I flew myself here? I don't get it. But apparently it's funny. All right, so, this is Tribe of Hackers. It's about how to get into hacking. This is, whatever. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, my early life. And I hate to, play the violin about how awful it was or whatever. But, I really did not understand this slide at all, actually. But I was telling this story about how, I guess I was in like the 7th grade. And, we had gifted class, for anybody who had an IQ over like 12. And so, in gifted class, we were playing chess. I don't know why, but we were. And everybody in my gifted class except me, because remember, this is Mississippi. If you're like smart and you're a girl, they take you out and shoot you at birth. So anyway, so it was me and all these other guys in gifted class, and we got along pretty well. This was before puberty. It hadn't gotten weird yet. So we were playing chess, and then this one weekend there was a chess tournament locally. So we all went, on a Saturday, which is, typically what, 12, 13-year-olds do with their time on the weekend, go to a chess tournament. So that's what we did, and surprisingly enough, I beat all the boys. This was a real upset. And when I went to school on Monday, none of them would talk to me. And you have to realize that these were like the only people in the school that didn't like point and laugh at me every day. So them like starting to point and laugh at me like really sucked. So when I explained this to an advisor, he said that I should just let the Wookiee win. See, they don't think it's funny. So naturally, because even the smart guys thought I was a dork now, which is a whole nother level of dorkiness, I actually dropped out and went to college when I was 14. We don't have a picture for this one, obviously. We tried. I went to college when I was 14 and then graduated when I was 18. Oddly enough, there's not very many places who are, looking for 18-year-olds with no work experience who have college degrees. I actually applied to be an intern at the NSA, but I guess I got stuck in the system because I didn't have high school, so I guess I would be in the shadow brokers too if I'd gone to high school. I don't know. But anyway, then I wouldn't be me, it all would have turned out differently. So anyway, college, and in college I did math like an undergrad, because again, my mother was a computer scientist, and when you're 15, nobody wants to be like their parents. So like my thumbing my nose at my parents was getting a math degree. So, but then it was like, okay, nobody wants to hire me. I can either go home and live with my parents, or I can go to grad school. So I went to grad school, and unfortunately it was in computer science. But then they had a cyber defense team, and this is actually not the picture from that year, because I was thinking about it. I'm like, they could point out which guy maybe it was, but this is actually from the next year. So I always tell this story, and I always get in a lot of trouble for it, that the whole reason I'm in InfoSec is because I had some crush on some guy, and apparently that's bad. But there was a cyber defense team at my school, and there was this guy, and yeah, he was hot, but apparently I'm supposed to say, I found him interesting. So I joined the cyber defense club to get to know him better. Okay, let's cut to the chase. He's married to the girl he was with then. It did not work out for me. But this year, the second year I did the collegiate cyber defense competition, I was the captain. And in the process of that, I found what I wanted to do with my life. And that was definitely not be a defender. Because if any of you have done a collegiate cyber defense competition, you are the defenders, and it is absolutely miserable. And anybody who's on the defensive side, I bow down to your superiorness. But there was a red team, the hackers, and they kept breaking into my stuff and like putting up messages, which I realized, is like not that elite, but to me it was like, oh my God, I want to do that. That's all I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's pretty much how that went down. I got a job as a pen tester, even though I knew nothing about it, except that those people at CCDC did it. And so then I was like, well, I've got a job, but then I go to these like conferences and I'm like, kind of wandering around because I'm, not very socially apt, I guess. And nobody would talk to me. So I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to show them I'm cool. So I submitted a talk to ShmooCon because that's what everyone should do for their first talk ever. It's one of the biggest conferences in the world. For better or worse, I got in, which was very surprising, and actually a bunch of people were really pissed off on Twitter that they didn't get in because they were like elite rock stars, and then I hadn't gotten my acceptance or rejection, and I'm like, oh no, what if I get in? And I did, and then I was just like, I wrote like me on Twitter, but I had like 7 followers, so no one knew. And anyway, but then it was like, oh, my whole career is gonna take off. But then the schedule came out, and I was on like Sunday at noon, which, let's face it, everybody's either hungover or gone home already. So as you can kind of see in the picture, probably not actually, I brought a bunch of beer to my talk, and that actually filled the room pretty well, the free beer sign. So you can actually say that my career was entirely made by a red wagon full of free beer. So, and Jason Street was there, and he invited me to some more conferences, and so that's how it all started, I guess. I think I'm past this page. Anyway, at some point, someone was like, you should do this thing called the DARPA Cyber Fast Track Grant. That won't totally destroy your life at all. And so I did, and it totally gave me a really skewed idea about what getting government grants was like, because it was like you fill out 7 pages and they call you like 4 days later and they're like, yeah, we're going to give you a bunch of money to do whatever you want. Real government grants are not like that. Anyway, so I got the DARPA Cyber Fast Track Grant, which I really wish was still around. I was having a conversation at the bar, and a lot of really good people like kind of got a good start there. But anyway, so I got fired from my job. It was basically like, turn down the grant, give us all the money for the grant, or leave. So I left and started my own company, which, going back to the autism was probably a really bad idea in terms of like, the skill set necessary to run a business. But I mean, we're here like, 5-6 years later, and I'm still here, bitches. And then, people were like, oh, you should write a book. And I was like, well, I always wanted to write a novel. I totally wanted to be David Foster Wallace when I grew up. So, I mean, this was before Me Too, and it got weird. A few people thought that was funny. Anyway, so then I did get a book deal, and everybody's like, you're going to do a mobile hacking book, right? That's what you do. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do an introduction to pen testing book. And there was just like crickets. People are like, what now? And everybody thought this was insane, and I also got accused of being a plagiarist because I didn't invent pen testing. But I'm here to tell you that this book has actually sold more than 30,000 copies now, so fuck you guys! All right, so now that I've got you guys to clap at me, I gotta tell you like where it all goes to shit, right? Because everything was going so great. I was riding on this great high. I was going to be up there, and I was going to be a security rock star for the rest of my life, and then everything went to shit. But now, yeah, there we go. All right, I love this picture because I actually had a picture of the actual coffee cup in question, but then this one was found, and it's a two coffee cups with actually like Poland written on them, which I thought was clever. So for those of you who don't know this, way before it was popular to do this for fun, apparently, I went to a conference and, kind of got into it with some guy who, doesn't understand the meaning of the, letters N followed by O. And yeah, so I mean, that was that. And it actually was kind of this empowering experience because I guess it's kind of like being in a plane crash, right? You never really know like what you would do. Like, would you run to the cockpit and like save the plane, like, all, Mission Impossible style, or would you just like sit there and cry? And, I was in this event and, I like smashed the guy's face. So I was like, I'm cool. I smashed some guy's face. But then I came home and everything really went to shit. All right, so this was actually many years later, but what was really weird about it is that, it kind of like turned into this thing where like it was like, oh, Georgia's lying, and people who were there were like, Georgia's lying, and it's like, oh, this was like, Georgia was trying to get attention for her, like, whatever it is I was doing then, I don't even know. But anyway, so everything was really awful, and now I'm going to blame all of you because it was entirely your fault because, like, okay, Jason, shut up. All right, Jason Street was behind me because he has to be singled out, but pretty much everybody else was like, Georgia sucks and we don't like her anymore. So there, nobody's laughing now. But I got the last laugh, so more fingers at you. Because I left InfoSec, I ran away. That's my horse, like, putting out his tongue, saying, fuck you. And so I left InfoSec, and basically, I guess I jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire, as they say, because I decided I was going to be a serious entrepreneur, which was, even more, like, complicated. But yeah, I went to this thing called Mach 37 in Virginia, which Marcus also went to, so I guess we have that like in common. We should get it tattooed, just like we survived a war. Anyway, so I took all my like, security research where I'm, like dancing around on stage, like, look at me, and, tried to turn it into like a real business. Well, tried. Anyway, so like, I guess you can kind of see how far I've come. Like on top, that's my original logo, which I still think is better. And then there's the bottom one, just like my professional one, like my professional outfit. Anyway, so, everything I did with the smartphone pen test framework with DARPA, now it's all like corporate and professional and you can buy it and stuff. And if I was a real like salesperson, I would have actually put the URL on the slide. But I didn't, so, if you want to buy my stuff or try it or whatever, like, come talk to me. I think I have, like, 4 business cards. That's not a business card. I've got business cards somewhere. Anyway, like, this is me as a serious entrepreneur, sort of. I don't know. Apparently we went off course somewhere here with this talk. It's not as funny as it used to be. Anyway, so... Then we're, I guess, at the notorious Me Too slide. So, after the Poland thing, I know this is where the talk went off course because you guys were laughing by that until then. But, like, everything was basically shit. Like, I couldn't focus on any of my work. I had panic attacks, like, all the time, especially, like, in crowds of people, like, I don't know, at a conference. And it was really hard to deal with it, and everybody was like, you lied, and I was crazy, but I couldn't be crazy because my attacker was like, she's crazy, she's making it up. So if I was crazy, then he was right. So it's like some weird logic game where I absolutely could not be crazy when I'm absolutely going completely insane, which is where the Me Too movement really helped me. I know a lot of people are probably rolling their eyes, but at least for me, it was like, I always thought that because, I wasn't raped, like, I came out of it, like, kind of as a strong person who was able to defend myself, that I really didn't have anything to be upset about. And, when people were calling me, like, toxic and a nightmare and a train wreck and all this stuff, that, that was all me, but apparently that's, pretty common, like, way to, I guess, respond to that sort of incident. But, this sort of stuff, like, never goes away. I got this, like, 2 weeks ago. So basically it, like, says that, the backstory was this guy was really mean to me on Twitter. See, I told you that was going to be the point of all this. And he said he was prejudiced against me about the whole hotel room incident because of reports of such things that had reached him. being a PR stunt, and that it's difficult because either basically I was lying and I wasn't a victim of anything, or else there was at least that possibility that I was lying, and thus, something that happened, I don't know, 5 years ago is like still a reason people like say shitty things to me online. And then it got even weirder because, I get a fair amount of like media appearance stuff, which is awesome. I love it. I like to grandstand and be on TV. But then one day this like media guy wrote me, he's like, I want you to comment on this thing I found online. And I'm like, okay. And it was this. Anybody recognize these? Ilmob, yes. So this was the weirdest thing I've ever been asked to comment on that I had seen online. The good stuff, more of George is a train wreck. I mean, you guys really need to get a new adverb. Apparently I can't handle my liquor, and apparently I asked 4 guys to fuck me in the ass in Houston. I have no memory of this. And then I'm a train wreck and all this shit, and but it hasn't all been bad because, again, the pictures are shit, but I got to be on ABC World News Tonight, and those assholes didn't. And then more than that, I got to be in this documentary on PBS called Life Hackers, which was about basically like they did this road trip in this big green bus, which I almost ran into the side of a building, which, watch the movie if you want to see it. But anyway, it was like people who wanted to become hackers were like traveling around the country to meet people. And actually this past year when I was doing my book signing at DEF CON, one of the people was actually a goon at DEF CON, which, is a whole other can of worms, but still, she had gone from, in the course of 2 years from being, somebody who was just thinking about InfoSec to being a goon at DEF CON. And I thought that was really awesome. But anyway, so that brings us, to Tribe of Hackers, and, at least one person two, Jason. 2 people in InfoSec still like me, and Marcus asked me to be in his book, which again, I really appreciate. And I think, this book and, the summits around it and all of this is really awesome because I think, we look at it as, you have to, like the last talk said, you kind of have to, it's this idea that you have to come at InfoSec in a particular way, or you have to look a certain way, or you have to be in a certain bro club. And that's totally not the case. There are a million different ways to get here, and that thing's blinking 0 at me, but I'll give it the finger too. So yeah, definitely believe in yourself, and all that shit people say about you on the internet is gonna make really great slides someday. So I told you this was about a horse. So my final slide, I don't even really like this picture of us because there's black back splatter everywhere because it was wet. But this is my horse Tempo, and without him, I would not be on this stage right now because you people would have killed me. Oops, I went off the script. But anyway, I guess InfoSec cannot be your entire life, though I think we kind of get the idea that it needs to be because of, how much, I guess, work we have to put into it to do well in a lot of cases, and we're always at con, and we're always, on this podcast or whatever. So it kind of becomes, for a lot of us, I think, our entire life. So when it starts to go downhill, at least for me, it was kind of now what? My life is over. So having something outside of that was okay, it's not InfoSec, and he doesn't give a shit what people say about me on Twitter, and I still get blue ribbons. That was awesome. So again, thank you to Marcus, and thank you to all of you for listening to me rant. I guess I should give this back.
Appreciate that, Georgia. Thanks a lot.